So, one of the reasons why I'm such a big fan of you is because you write historical fiction and horror.
Uh-huh.
And for most of my reading, life, I've read historical fiction. I actually only started reading horror like a year ago. I
Wow.
was always like historical fiction girl, and that started in high school.
Uh-huh.
So, I guess what I wanted to ask you is, do you prefer writing horror or historical fiction? Like,
Um,
which one do you enjoy more?
it it kinda ebbs and flows. If I could give a quick arc of my career and explain, um, so I wrote 3 horror novels at the beginning of my writing career that over a span of 12 years that never sold. Wasn't able to find an agent, couldn't find a publisher, and then my 4th book, have you ever heard of Waverly Hills
Yeah, I've
Tuberculosis
been there.
Sanitarium?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I went there because it's in my hometown, fully intending to do some research, and I'm like, "All right, this 4th book, it's gonna be scary. I'm going to Waverly. Imma think of a story, be inspired." But when I got there, the building, the architecture was so impressive, and it was huge. Um, and then I thought I was standing on the 4th floor solarium porch overlooking the woods, and I thought, "What if this place is haunted? What's their story?" And then I imagined the sound of a violin and a piano, and I thought of a doctor there in the 1920s who heals patients with music therapy. Um, and then went home and wrote my first historical, and that is the one that got an agent and sold. So, for a decade, that's what I wrote, and 6 novels. Some of my historical, like one of them is a Jack the Ripper, and Jekyll and Hyde mashup. That one's a little darker, but it's also the one right before I wrote The Nightmare Man. So I was trending that way. But most of my historicals are, I think they're really good book club books. There's a lot of stuff to, um, unpack in those. They're pretty, emotional reads at times. Um, but after 6 of them, I didn't have anything under contract, and then I thought, "Alright, I'm barely staying relevant writing historical. I'm ready to rebrand, do something different," and that's when I wrote The Nightmare Man. Um, and then those kinda took off. Um, but I was ready after 5 or 6 of those to get back to writing the historical. So it kinda comes and goes.
Yeah.
I will say because I do get that question about writing in 2 genres. Um, and, this is one thing the horror authors battle because there are some gross things in horror. There's some, they could be loving things or there could be funny things, whatever. But horror, a lot of times people think, "Oh, that's sick. What's wrong with him?" But you get that as a horror writer. Um, and I always say, if you want more of who I am, that comes out more in my historical fiction. Um, Not necessarily that any of the characters are based off me, because those would be boring books. Um, but if you want more of a sense who I am as a person, that those come out more in the historical for sure. Whereas um, the horror, thriller, suspense, I have maybe more fun doing those just because of I could, not as much research, make, using my imagination a lot more. So a long, long answer to that question is maybe, and I just came up with it. Thanks for asking. Um, so maybe I had more fun writing the JH novels, but the James historical ones are more rewarding, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
makes sense.
I have a habit of doing that. I'll start in the middle of a thought, but eventually I get around to the point.
Same,
You can you can
same.
edit you can edit all that however you want.
No, that was a great answer.
Okay.